there everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about how I connect to my matron goddess. My makeup might look a bit crazy in this video. I've been trying just some stuff. I've been watching too much Drag Race and I'm just like... Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to be talking about how I connect to my matron deity, which is Morgan Le Fay. This can really be adapted to any deity, and obviously it doesn't actually have to be a deity, it can be any kind of being. I mean, Morgan Le Fay is someone that I work with very closely, but she's not kind of a typical, like a classic deity. She's actually a person, a witch, a healer, depending on where you get your information. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of share how I connected with her and how I kind of continue to do so. So let's get into it. The first thing, when I very first kind of decided that I wanted to connect with her, is I actually did a meditation. So the meditation basically consisted of me just tripping on the astral and visiting her, asking her to kind of come to me and just sort of going with the flow and really seeing what happened. So when I was on the astral, we basically, she came to me and we went into her cave and we had this big kind of amazing ritual. It was a bit of an initiation actually. It kind of seemed like she chose me, and it was at that point I was like, right, okay, this is serious. And she gave me some very good advice and kind of the motto that I basically am carrying forward throughout my entire life. So yeah, that was kind of intense, but my journey with Morgan didn't actually start there. So what I did after this, when I decided I really wanted to start kind of taking this very seriously, is I made this, and this is just a little notebook, and when you open it, yeah, I just basically I had an old sketchbook, and I just took out some of the pages, folded it in half, tore the edges, so I don't know if you can really see very well, but yeah, basically just so it looked a bit more rustic, and then I just had a piece of black card and folded it all up and then sewed quite a rough little, probably can't see it, I don't know, but just with some random thread that I had, and then just drew this picture on the front. And now I use this as my Morgan Le Fay kind of diary, and it can be quite intimidating starting new journals, especially when it's something, for such a big important thing in your life like meeting a new deity. So what I did with this was to break the ice a bit. I started off by just talking about the very first experience of Morgan Le Fay that I could remember. And that was basically when I was a child. When I was a child, me and my family used to go to quite a lot of historical places, museums, castles, that kind of thing. And I remember getting a comic book full of Arthurian legends, and Morgan Le Fay was in it. And she was portrayed as kind of an evil hag type, the typical portrayal of Morgan Le Fay that's kind of prevailed, unfortunately. So yeah, so I just wrote all about that. And then I wrote about like the next thing that I saw Morgan Le Fay in, which was when I was a child. It was the CBBC series Merlin, which I'm still obsessed with. I'm really upset about how they took Morgan's character in the end. So I wrote all about that, and I wrote my feelings and attitudes towards it and how I felt about her portrayal in that role or in that book or whatever. Yeah, and then I wrote all about my experiences with Morgan as a deity. And I've just wrote out basically a transcript of the astral trip that I did where I met her and the ritual and what advice she gave me and like all that kind of thing. So just writing absolutely everything that's in your brain about the deity, no matter what it is, because at the end of the day this is actually for you. It's not for anyone else, or it's not even for your deity, it's for you as a reference book. Then what I decided to do, because there's a lot of books and research on Morgan Le Fay, so what I wanted to do next was to basically read as much of that as I could. So get my hands on historical resources that include her and more modern, more modern kind of scholarly articles or books that talk about Morgan. So basically what I did then was I looked up Morgan Le Fay online, looked up, books including Morgan Le Fay, articles including Morgan Le Fay, and just kind of took a selection of them and read them and made notes in my book. Because I think it is quite important when working with a deity that you know something about the deity's origins. I mean, the more the better, in my opinion, but I'm a bit of a history nerd, so I don't know. That's just kind of the angle that I quite like to come at it from, because it just shows, if you do a decent amount of research, it just shows a level of respect, I think, for whoever it is that you're trying to work with. I will say though that the most important thing is your connection with them and your experiences of them in the real world and on the astral and so on. I do think that's the most important thing. But doing, a decent amount of reading and research, it doesn't have to be reading, it can be watching videos or listening to audiobooks or whatever, asking other people, joining Facebook groups, all that kind of thing, I do think it just shows a certain level of respect for the deity, and it'll make your relationship richer because you'll know what kind of things that deity represents, what they can help you with, what helps you to decide what to offer them, all of that. And it really helps to decide if they're the right deity for you, So a few of the books that I've read on Morgan that I've got physically are The Life of Merlin. So this is basically, it's the first work to describe the Arthurian sorceress Morgan Le Fay as Morgan. So I read this, and there's about a page in here, and I think I actually copied the whole thing out because it's not much about Morgan. And basically she's a healer from the Isle of Apples, Avalon, and it's interesting because this portrays her in a completely different light to later works, such as this, Le Morte d'Arthur by Thomas Malory. Now, I've not got through the whole thing for obvious reasons. I'm a pretty slow reader and this is ridiculous. So I've just been kind of skimming through it and just picking up bits here and there that are interesting and related to Morgan and so on, and just making notes again in the book. And the last one that I actually have physically, this doesn't actually include Morgan, but I think getting to know the Arthurian legends, or at least I don't think it does, I'm struggling to remember now, but I think getting to know the Arthurian legends in general and the sort of landscape that they originated in is really interesting. So we have The History of the Kings of Britain, and this is by Geoffrey of Monmouth, as well as The Life of Merlin. So I also looked at a lot of books online. So Morgan Le Fay, Shapeshifter, was a really good one. And then there's been loads. Anyway, I'll stop blathering on. I might do a whole other video once I've done a bit more research on Morgan specifically and her history and how she's changed and whatever. But this is not about that. This is about connecting to any matron deity. So I need to stop getting carried away. So yeah, I think just doing a decent amount of research and making notes on anything that you find relevant or interesting will really help to solidify the connection that you have to the deity and make you feel like you know them a bit better. And while I was doing that, I was still doing lots of meditative work and going back to the place that we did the initial ritual on the astral. So I think revisiting that place, really, the ritual kind of cemented that as a mystical, magical space where we can meet and where it's safe. And so going back there time and again has been really helpful. I also have done meditations where we started there and then she actually took me to the Isle of Apples. I was in desperate need of healing, so yeah, she took me there and she did a bit of a healing kind of ritual and spell on me, and we had a little look around the Isle of Apples. So again, that just shows that, learning about your deity and where they come from, the kinds of things they're known for, can really help solidify your connection with them. Because if I hadn't had it anywhere in my brain that that's where she came from and that's what she was all about, that probably wouldn't have happened, because it wouldn't have manifested in the same way. That's not to say that Deity can't come to you and tell you things about who they are and what they do and any misconceptions and things. They absolutely can, but I do just think it clearly helps. What else did I do? Oh, duh. So I set up my altar space in accordance with her. I'm actually going to film an altar tour. I don't know which video will be up first, but I'm going to film it after this, so I won't show you too much now. But yeah, I created my altar all around her, and when I do tarot readings or spells, I always ask her to join me. I leave her offerings on there. Again, you know, I know what offerings to give her by communicating with her and also by doing research on her. People often think that you can only connect when you're at the altar space or when you're meditating or tripping on the astral, but I don't find that to be true. I think that, you know, the most powerful for me actually is in everyday life. So I like to actually invoke Morgan just in everyday life, and I'm feeling stressed, I'm in need of some healing or some courage or maybe a little bit of cunning, because she's definitely got that side to her. You know, she's not all sweetness and light by any stretch of the imagination. Whenever I need any kind of boost or whatever in everyday life, I like to, you know, sort of draw her down, I guess, and invoke her, and she gives me a lot of confidence and a lot of power. I feel a sense of power and sovereignty, and it just feels amazing. And I think that is so powerful when you invoke a deity and it helps you to do an everyday task that you've been struggling with. And I think a lot of the time that is what strengthens your connection so much more than in a very kind of ritualistic fashion. I think it's the everyday things like that. And also that really helps when you get into the habit of doing that, because a lot of us don't have time to do, you know, these elaborate rituals or spend, you know, 2 hours on the astral, you know, every day. So just incorporating the deity into your everyday life just helps to keep up that relationship that you have, and, you know, you can learn more about them as you invoke them or evoke them or whatever. It doesn't always have to be super intense. It can just be a chat, depending on the deity, you know, and depending on how you feel and how they kind of, you know, interact with you. Yeah, that might be all I want to say for now, but it does take a little while to build a relationship with deity. It's a bit like, you know, creating a friendship, basically, a much more intense friendship, that it takes time to build up trust, to learn things about them. It's very similar. I think the most important thing is that, you know, not to let it stress you out. You don't have to feel guilty for not speaking to or, you know, making time for deity every single day. I mean, it'll vary again depending on the intensity of the relationship and the intensity of the deity that you're working with. Some will want your attention a lot of the time, but if that's not something that you can feasibly give, then that might not be the right deity for you. So yeah, just have fun, get to know the deity, spend time, you know, just having fun and exploring said deity. It's the most rewarding thing ever. It's just super fun, and yeah, just relax with it and make sure that you're having a good time, because having a relationship with deity takes a bit of time, but it is the most rewarding thing, and it's just, I don't know, it's just the best thing ever. I never thought that I would do it, actually, but I am very glad that I did. And I'm gonna go film my altar tour now, so don't look. And I'll see you very soon. Bye. The Life of Merlin. Not The Life of Merlin. That's The Life of Merlin. This is a life, and you need a bit of motherly, you know. Motherly what?